I'm Sarah Maslin Nir of the New York Times, sitting in for Sam Roberts. Welcome to the New York Times Close-Up. This week, the city is managing a world-class transportation headache, moving World Cup fans around the region. We'll look at whether New York is meeting the moment. But first, we're joined by Metro reporter David Waldstein. He spent more than 25 years covering sporting events like the World Cup and the Paralympics, and most recently, the wild, passionate world of New York sports. He's been covering the Knicks' historic championship run and the way the city has been watching, celebrating, and living it in every borough. Welcome.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
So you did a story that struck me, only you could have thought it up, watch parties, the makeshift world of watch parties. Why did you feel that rose? Why was something different happening here that you saw on the streets?
Well, you're very kind, but it wasn't my idea. It was our great photo editor, Eve Edelheit's idea.
Huh.
Because it was a very visual presentation, and she's great at that stuff, and saw that around the city, people were gathering in groups, both small and large, to watch the games. And so she corralled some of her great photographers to capture that and asked me to write it. And it's really an amazing piece visually. Just the photographs and videos are tremendous.
I had a friend who was watching at a bar, outside a bar on the street, and at one point she realized that the bar was closed, and she wasn't watching at a bar. She was actually watching someone's TV that they had hung out their window, and everyone on the street was watching a random person's TV.
You know, it's like the old days when people would stand outside department stores and look at the TVs and display, or the moon landing or something like that. This was New York's moon landing, and people loved to watch it together so they could cheer. It gave them, you know, tickets were ridiculously expensive.
Yep.
You know, it could cost you $10,000 to go to a finals game. So most of the people, the common people, everyday people, they still wanted that experience of watching together, cheering together, you know, experience the tension and the joy together. And so you did that in bars, restaurants. They strung up screens on the sides of buildings, in you know, on street corners, on scaffolding, and in Central Park. It was amazing.
So you have been trying to examine, has there ever been a crazier sports moment? And you juxtaposed it next to the finals run, this finals run next to 1994. Where do we land?
So 1994 will probably never be repeated again, because the Knicks were in the finals. The New York Rangers hockey team, which hadn't won a Stanley Cup in 54 years at that point, won the Stanley Cup. So you had both those teams playing alternating nights at Madison Square Garden, plus the World Cup was here. And then in Game 5 of the finals with the Knicks against the Rockets, you had the O.J. Simpson slow-speed chase, which was then the cameras the TV broadcasts were split between the Knicks game and the O.J. chase.
Wild.
It was bizarre. So plus the World Cup. So there's a lot of similarities. That was unique in that way. This was kind of more intense in a way, just strictly looking at the Knicks. I've never seen anything quite like the Knicks mania that went on.
So you've spoken to some really interesting people and some legends in the course of your reporting on this story. I also have. I ended up having a phone call with Spike Lee, which was hilarious. I said, are you going to go to San Antonio to watch, I think it was Game 4? And he said, is Al Green, is Marvin Gaye, is James Brown? And then he just basically hung up the phone. It was fabulous. But you spoke to Earl the Pearl Monroe, who helped the Knicks win the last title. What were the takeaways from that conversation?
Well, Earl is just like there's never been a more apt nickname than the Pearl, because he really is, he's a gem. And he's an underrated player from those teams, because everybody thinks first of Clyde Frazier and maybe Bill Bradley, Willis Reed, and they all were great too. But Earl was something special. He was a great scorer. When they won their last championship before this one, he scored the most points in the final game. And he's an amazing philanthropist. He has a school, a charter school in the Bronx, in a very rough area of the Bronx that is very dear to his heart. So he is very active with that. But he's also suffering from a lot of physical ailments due to his playing career.
Really?
Yeah, he's in a lot of pain constantly, knee pain, neck pain, back pain. And so he doesn't like to be seen in public. Like a lot of those former players were down on the court and they're waving and they're being shown on TV and on the screen. Earl sort of wanted to stay in the background for most of that, but he deserves to be recognized for his great contributions to the Knicks of the past.
So this moment, fans have been, we call them long-suffering Knicks fans. Is there any moment that encapsulates in your interviews what this moment means to them? I mean, I had people say, I've been a Knicks fan, but in secret all these years. Now they're coming out. Did you have a moment like that in your reporting?
Many, and not just in my reporting, right? I mean, like you said, you've got friends, people family members. They're just like, and if they're of a certain age, they're like, I can't believe this. That's some of them. A lot of people were sort of like, I can't believe this actually happened, and part of that is that they can't believe it happened with this team. This is a really good team, but I don't think people expected this would be the championship team. And so there's an element of disbelief after everything that these fans have been through. Some of them remember the 1973. Most of them don't. And so the ones that don't thought they'd never see it. The ones who do remember it are like, well, we're never going to get to that again because of what we've seen over the last 25 years. And so disbelief, I think, is the biggest thing. Yeah.
So this is interesting. Before we sat down, I suggested you, like me, wear your Knicks swag, and you demurred, and I was scandalized thinking you weren't a Knicks fan, but you explained, as a sports reporter, there's a level of objectivity. You can't really root for a team. Can you talk us through that and the time standard on that?
Well, it's not just the time standard. I think it's, as you have to remain objective and unbiased. So you can't be supporting one team or another because that could cloud your reporting. It's funny because, I've been to a few World Cups and the standard does not apply seemingly with a lot of soccer reporters, some of whom will wear at the game, like if it's Argentina's playing, and they'll be wearing an Argentina shirt in the press box, which is just anathema to sports journalists. So yeah, we're not supposed to have a side, just so that we can, remain objective in our reporting.
Well, some of your objective reporting has taken a really tough look at sports. You've written about scandals and betting. This moment seems about pure fandom in a way. How is that distinct from what you've seen over the course of your reporting?
I'll tell you what, I moved to New York when I was 25. So I've been around for 5 Yankees championships, 3 New York Giants football championships. The Devils have won, the Rangers won. The Rangers was big, but I've never seen anything like this.
Really?
I've never seen just the growing groundswell of support among the citizenry. And from young to old and black and white and just, men, women, you can't walk half a block down the city street without seeing like 3 or 4 Knicks hats or shirts or something.
And then everybody yells at you, Knicks in 5.
Yeah. Which is funny because, the Knicks fans have sort of created their own thing with that.
Yeah.
That traditionally was a prediction that you would say before a series. Like, I think the Knicks is going to win in 5. I think Knicks in 4. It's going to be a close series, Knicks in 7. Now it's been turned to meaning, a statement of what happened.
Yeah.
Knicks in 5.
Yeah.
Knicks did it. They did it easily. But besides the fact that we've never seen the city get so wrapped up in a team before that I can remember, I don't think I've seen a team that just like cruised through the playoffs so easily.
Well, what do you attribute the city's enormous affection for the Knicks now? What do you attribute this change to?
Well, it's a few things. So it's the long time coming, with some absolutely brutal teams. I covered the Knicks about 20 years ago when they had Isaiah Thomas, Larry Brown, Stephon Marbury, and they were terrible, and they won only 23 games. It was scandalous. And I thought, oh, they'll never be that bad again. And then I think 2 more times, they won only 17 games, and once I think they won 21 or 22. So it actually did get worse. So there's that there's been so many years of terrible basketball, mismanagement and scandal. So there's that. Then it's like the growing popularity of the NBA, especially among young people. And then you have young people that are looking to express themselves more. And I think the ascension and election of Zoran Mamdani as the mayor has sort of added some enthusiasm to all that. And there's a crossover, there's a Venn diagram of Mamdani supporters and Knicks fans.
I witnessed a super funny moment about that. I went and watched the final game down in the West Village, and we were watching on the side of a building like you described, thousands of people, and behind the crowd, Mamdani and AOC were having dinner in a bar called La Dive, and people were cheering the Knicks and then cheering Mamdani and cheering the Knicks, and I saw that cross section happen.
Yeah. It's usually I don't know. Usually it's politicians of a different stripe that ride the wave of sports success. This is sort of an unusual one, I think. But there really is a crossover between the young Knicks supporters and the young Mamdani supporters. But it goes beyond that too. It's just I don't know. Like as these playoffs went along, it just built and built like a crashing tidal wave, and everybody was on board riding it.
It was interesting, in front of MSG, I ran into a woman who had taken a plane from Kansas. She used to live in New York, and she'd taken a plane from Kansas just to come feel the vibe. And I thought that was really fascinating. And she said that it felt like post-pandemic New York wasn't New York again, and this was its moment to revisit itself, and she didn't want to miss it. And I wondered if there was that post-pandemic, the isolation, the remote work that we've all kind of become separated in our apartments, and now here's a moment to be in the streets and cheer as one.
Absolutely. It's really a special moment that way. When was the last time that people were like able to be out in the streets celebrating something, not protesting something bad, it's celebrating something good that everybody is sharing in.
When this all calms down, what's next for New York sports, the Knicks? What do we go back to normal, or what happens?
Well, first, there's the World Cup. And it's kind of cool to watch the overlap of the Knicks and the World Cup. And you just see it on the street. People with Knicks jerseys crossing paths with people in Brazil or Argentina or France soccer jerseys. And that the World Cup is going to start to build momentum. It already has. It's going to be even more. Then I guess later in the summer, you'll have people paying more attention to the Yankees. Then when the Knicks start up again, that's going to be exciting too, because they'll raise the banner, and it's been 53 years since they've done that. So there will be that. But this particular moment, which was so long in the making, that's not going to be repeated for a long time.
I don't know. You're a skeptic. I think the Knicks can do it again.
Well, the Knicks can, but it won't feel like this. It won't feel the same. Maybe if the Mets win.
Great. Thank you, David, for coming on. I'll see you in the cheer section next time.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Sure. Next up, transit reporter Stefanos Chen on what that free city parking spot is really worth. Now, let's turn to another competitive sport, getting to a World Cup match in New Jersey. Transit reporter Stefanos Chen has been tracking the fastest ways to get to MetLife Stadium and how much each option will cost, along with some new art popping up in our subways, and how much that free parking spot really costs the city. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, I want to start with this amazing story. I was actually there when we were ideating this, about pulling off the amazing race to get to MetLife Stadium. Can you talk us through that story and how it came about and explain it a little?
Yeah, it's something that's been kind of percolating. We've been chatting about it here in the newsroom for a while. Just this idea that there are these major events in New York, and in this case, New Jersey, where it just seems like an impossible trek. In this case, the circumstances are even weirder because for the first time, compared to most major events at MetLife Stadium, where the World Cup is being played in Jersey, yeah, most people can't park there. This is the same stadium where the Jets and the Giants play. Tailgating is part of the built-in tradition there, but that's all out the window with this tournament because of the security concerns. So instead, you've got close to 80,000 people per game, 8 games in New Jersey, where you have tens of thousands of fans trying to get over there, and their best chance at it is mass transit. But as we've gotten closer to this game, there's been a lot of kerfuffle about how expensive that this transit is. The New Jersey Transit ticket, the train ticket to get there, typically costs about $13. For these games, it's going to cost you $98.
And it was going to be 125, right? And then they lowered it after people outcried?
Actually, they began at 150. So, I mean, really up there. And people were just screaming bloody murder about these prices. So New Jersey Transit, after the pressure, lowered the price and swore up and down that this is the cost to run the show essentially because of the multi-million-dollar price tag of security that FIFA has saddled them with. But we thought that this would be a fun sort of game for us, really. I mean, it was me and 3 of our colleagues who decided on a Saturday to go out for that first game in Jersey and just try one of each of the methods of transit. You have the train, which is $98. The bus, which is its own fun story, initially it was a smaller thing, but now they've expanded it to hold more people. And Governor Hochul got a fleet of school buses, yellow cheese buses, as part of that. So you can pay $20 to get on a school bus and get over to the game. Uber and Lyft and the other rideshare options are there, but there's no cap on prices, so you're really rolling the dice when traffic is really bad. And they've forbidden people from taking a walk over to the stadium because if you know the Meadowlands, it's essentially a big swamp surrounded by really dangerous highway. So they're really discouraging people from walking, but they didn't say anything about biking. So one of our cyclists, avid cyclists in the newsroom, Bill Ferguson, volunteered to bike the path from Midtown Manhattan to Jersey.
And you all set off at the same time, and it was a race, sort of the amazing race. The school bus option, I think, took 3.5 hours. The driver was driving on some cockamamie route. I mean, wild.
Yeah, it was actually very surprising. If I were to have done an over/under on this, I would have said most likely train gets there first, followed by bus and everything else. But what we found was, in part because the train is so expensive in people's eyes, New Jersey Transit is not selling as well as they initially expected. They thought they'd have up to 40,000 people a day on these trains. They've gotten roughly half of that per game. They're now backtracking and saying that actually they always intended to take 20,000 per game or thereabouts, but that doesn't resolve the issue that those trains have fewer people on them than what was projected, which means that you have tens of other thousands of people getting on the highway, which is exactly what. So that means the Ubers are going to get slower, the buses are certainly going to get slower. And parking, there's also this option to pay $225 at American Dream Mall about a mile away. That's also going to mean that more people are going to drive to the game, which nobody really wants.
And I think I remember, was it you who was on the train in this?
Yes,
yes. And it was a party, right? I think that was kind of fabulous.
It was great. I mean, I was sweating buckets. I was feeling awful that morning. But as soon as I got through, the 3 security screens at Penn Station, you get on board with all of these chanting Morocco and Brazil fans, everyone wearing their colors. It was a party. It felt great. I mean, once the doors closed and the air conditioner was blasting, I ran into a Bay Area rapper, this young guy who has a very popular Moroccan song. He was trending in Morocco for this rap song. He started spitting some verses for us on board, which was hilarious and just a lot of fun. So the ride itself was comfortable, and actually New Jersey Transit did a good job of getting people to the game that day. But at the same time, there's these question marks about how the rest of this tournament's going to go. You've still got 6 games to play, some of which are happening during rush hour traffic in New York City. And you've got folks who are dissatisfied with that $100 ticket price. So are we going to see more traffic on these other routes that are going to jam up the works?
I was just speaking with your sports colleague, David Waldstein, And one of the big things that we covered was the Knicks, this sports moment. And it's kind of amazing that all news is sports news right now, even transit. But you cover other aspects of transit, and you haven't relented on that, even while you're trying to figure out how people are getting to and fro all over the city for these sports games. You've been covering the 2nd Avenue subway, and there's some movement with that, this glacial boondoggle of a project. Take us to the latest there, which has nothing to do with sports for once.
Well, that's an interesting one too, because it's really a century in the making. It's one of these projects that goes all the way back to early the last century, late 1920s is when this first is proposed to take the 2nd Avenue line, which most of us know as the Q line, and extend it up through Harlem and East Harlem. But that part of the project has just been a pipe dream for decades and decades. It now seems finally that, knock on wood, Governor Hochul is going to get this project back on track. And we wrote recently about that expansion. I got to go and tour the tunnel, which was built in the 1970s but abandoned because of the fiscal crisis.
Wow.
It's sort of a reminder that this has been tried many times before, and hopefully this one sticks. But there's billions of dollars at stake here. This one expansion is going to be about a $7 billion project, and it will not be ready until the early 2030s. It's on track. And even up until very recently, the Trump administration had threatened this project by not releasing money that had been promised for this endeavor. So you just had political issues, construction issues, just a perfect storm of delays. And now finally it seems like it's moving forward.
So moving on to another one of your stories, there is a bright spot. You found this Rockefeller descendant who has raised $1 million to put her art in the subway. This is a gem. Tell me this tale.
I love covering transit for this reason, because there's just all these weird, quirky stories out there. But this is something that came to me where it seemed almost like a gimmick. I thought initially, and I was very skeptical, that this must be some sort of coy advertising campaign. And we spent a lot of time just reporting and making sure that this was not that this wasn't some Trojan horse to sell moisturizer, right? This artist came to us, and she was well-funded. She had a PR company. And essentially what happened was she is a hobby artist. She goes by the name Susan Bird, but her real name is Sue Gilbert. And we did our research and discovered that she is the descendant of the Rockefellers. Grew up affluent in Connecticut on a private island, all of which we discussed once we met her. And she just loves art, and she presented this as a gift to the city. And I was taken in by this because I grew up in the 90s in the city, where most of the ads in the subway were weird. You had you had psychic ads, and you had personal injury lawyers.
Dr. Zizmore.
Dr. Zizmore. All these really iconic kind of low-res, grainy ads. And recently it's been replaced by these very sterile AI ads. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, in the idea of the AI slop, it's also being presented in the ads. We see it. It's everywhere. So just the idea that someone has spent their own money to erase that space and put something friendly and different is interesting. There's also the added quirk that she is a very deep-pocketed, affluent person who made this possible because she was able to get some of her finance friends in Seattle, where she to hop aboard this. So this is one of those stories you just got to read through and look at some of these fun details, because I had a lot of fun meeting Sue and figuring out what this is all about.
I love that. Well, to something less fun, and we're moving, buses, bikes, trains, cars. Tell us about quote unquote free parking in New York City. I have written about this as well. New York City parking garages are the most expensive per square foot in the country. I've met with people who sleep in their cars sometimes when they can't find parking spots, because what else are they going to do? And you're telling us the free parking is not free for New York.
Right, yeah. This is a piece that I collaborated on with our colleague, Emma Fitzsimmons, who's also really passionate on this topic. And it sort of came up because, alternate side parking, if you're a parent and you're working and you have to get up in the middle of a call and move your car because you're on the side of the street that's going to get ticketed, is one of these things that we just take for granted as such a weird New York ritual. And so that was kind of the germ of this story, which is that we have this system that everyone assumes is just normal, and it really isn't. It's a recent phenomenon that overnight parking and free parking has become a thing in New York City. And so we explored some of the most popular reforms for free parking. We know that Mayor Mamdani's administration and his new DOT commissioner, Mike Flynn, have shown some interest in some of these ideas. So we did a breakdown of what this could look like. It's also shocking just how much of that street parking is not tolled. It's something like 3% of all spaces are tolled in the city. So just miles and miles of space that people take for granted as their personal storage, when really that could be used for better mass transit, for buses, for outdoor dining, for bikes. And so it's an exploration of what these ideas could yield to the city, the money it could raise for projects. And we went through a long list of some of these proposals.
I spoke to transit advocates or mass transit advocates who really enlightened me, just the concept that some taxpayers get to use all taxpayers' money for their private item, a car, to put it on the street that everyone pays for. And that really was an interesting, eye-opening way of conceiving of this. Like you said, people take it for granted, but why are you allowed to, for free, store your private vehicle on the street? It was a fascinating exploration. Can you name a few of these types of options that other places do and how it might be modeled in New York in the last few minutes we have?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple of these that have seemingly worked in other cities. For one, just add more metered parking. It's not the quarter-fed machines anymore. I mean, there's technology now that makes this much simpler, where you can every other block put up one of these machines where you can scan and return your ticket to the parking space. App-based technology is making this much simpler, where you probably don't even need that physical infrastructure anymore. But that's one thing. The second is dynamic pricing, which is kind of it has a negative connotation now, but in this context, it means demand-based pricing, which is that study which blocks have the most demand. If someone wants to park for 15 minutes to go grab a cup of coffee, change the pricing so that they're disincentivized from keeping that car around, forever. Make them want to leave after 30 minutes. So increase the price there. But on blocks where there's less demand, lower the price. And it's essentially just a closer look at the parking prices, which has been proven in cities like San Francisco to actually move cars faster and help businesses.
Great. Well, I will see you in the newsroom. I won't see you walking to MetLife Stadium because that is forbidden, though it's free. So thank you so much for joining us, Stefanos.
Yeah.
That's it for our show. And for the New York Times and CUNY TV, I'm Sarah Maslin Nir. If you've enjoyed these conversations and want to support more programs like this, please consider donating at the link in your screen. Thank you for watching.